So maybe your helo's been shot down, and you forgot to grab a GPS when you were playing G.I. Joe dress-up at the arsenal. Maybe the Zeus worked out a code to simulate an EMP and has deleted your GPS and radio from your inventory. Or perhaps you're playing Arma in a historical setting and don't have access to these tools. In any case, the result is the same. You're f***ing lost. But don't worry, this is Annuncia with the TCG 75th Ranger Regiment, and I'm here to teach you the basics of land nav in Arma 3 Ace. As the title suggests, this guide assumes you're using the Ace mod in Arma 3. While these techniques can be used in vanilla Arma 3, many of the tools needed to make things easier don't exist in the vanilla game. That being said, let's begin. Before we dive into how to find your location, we first have to talk about how to read a map, and more specifically the contour map you get by default in Arma. If you've never read a contour map before, the basic premise is that all these squiggly lines you see are used to mark elevation changes on the map. So if you see a bunch of these lines very close together, that means there's a very steep hill or mountainside there. Conversely, if the lines are more spread out, it means there's a much gentler slope in that location. And if you look in the lower right-hand corner of your map as you zoom in and out, you'll see a guide that shows you how much elevation change each line denotes on the map. You can also look out on the map for large green sections that denote forests, as well as any blue areas denoting water features like lakes or swamps. Roads are also marked out pretty clearly, depending on how far you're zoomed in. Dark yellow lines on the map are highways. Lighter yellow roads are usually smaller two-way roads, while light brown or tan lines are usually dirt roads. One additional note is that the map is also littered with little black dots marked by a number. These denote the elevation at that point, which can help you figure out which parts of the map are higher than their surrounding area, which is also useful for setting up support in Overwatch positions during a mission. In addition to your map, in Ace, you will also need your compass and a set of map tools, which can be found in the additional items section of the arsenal. It also helps, but is not necessary, to have a pair of binoculars. If you're playing in a modern era setting, I also like to have an altimeter watch on me at all times. Not only so I don't accidentally forget to grab one before I try to parachute out of a plane, but it's also helpful for comparing your current altitude with the marked elevations on the map. More on that later. Let's take the example of our helo being shot down and our GPS is mysteriously missing from our inventory. I'm also going to use the Altis map from Arma 3 for this training, but these techniques apply to any map you're playing on. Assuming you're not being shot at, the first thing you're going to want to do is to find a secure location, preferably on high ground. Having the high ground is not only good for cutting down your troublesome Padawan, but also for being able to see really far in all directions. Just make sure your enemy hasn't had the same idea. It can also help to mark out a large area on your map where you think you are to help narrow things down. In this case, I know my helo took off from the main airbase on Altis and was heading northwest in the direction of Oreo Castro. So even with the pilot's evasive maneuvers and crash, I figure I must be somewhere in the northwest of Altis. One side note here. If you're not already using the CH View Distance mod, I highly recommend you add it to your mod pack. By pressing the Control and the left and right bracket keys, you can very easily step your view distance out and back. When looking for landmarks, it's extremely helpful to increase your view distance as much as your computer can handle to more easily spot what you're looking for, and then bringing it back down to more reasonable distances when it's time to move. If you don't use this mod, you can change these distances in your video settings. Just don't forget to change them back if needed so you don't suffer horrible lag during a firefight. Once you've got a secure spot, start scanning for any landmarks. Roads and what direction they're running can be a big help in narrowing down your location. If you spot clusters of buildings, take note of how they're arranged and see if you can find something similar on the map. And if there's special buildings like radio towers, lighthouses, stadiums, etc., these can also really help narrow down your location. And especially on Altus, clusters of windmills and what direction they're arranged in are also very useful and visible landmarks. Whatever the landmark, it can be helpful to start marking them on the map to make it easier to re-find them later. This is especially useful for things like windmills and power lines, as you have to zoom in quite a lot for them to pop up on the map, so having some quick reference marks for them later on speeds things up quite a bit. By far, the easiest way to find out where you are is to look for a nearby town. In all of the vanilla Arma maps, and in many of the modded ones as well, the roads in and out of towns and cities have clearly marked road signs with their name on it. If you can spot one of these signs, that will massively narrow down your location. Just find that location on the map and use the surrounding landmarks to help narrow down your position. For example, here I've managed to hole up in a partially destroyed building on a hilltop. I've spotted a dirt road to my west, which leads to a town to my northwest. Down the road, I've managed to spot a sign for Sirta. Once I find Sirta on my map, I can start to look for a hillside to the southeast near a dirt road, and voila, I've managed to find my location. But let's say we can't get near a town to read the sign, and instead we have to rely on various landmarks to find out where we are. This is where those map tools and compass start to come in handy. So here in this example, I'm on a hilltop somewhere in the northwest of Altus, and I've managed to spot 3 clusters of windmills to my west, northwest, and north. I've also spotted a road to my east with power lines running along it before turning off into the windmills. I've already marked the various windmill clusters on the map. The one off to my west looks like it's running roughly north and south, while the one to my north looks like it's running straight east and west. Looking at the map, it looks like these 2 in blue are the ones I'm looking at. I've also opened my altimeter watch with the O key by default and see that my height is at 225 meters above sea level, so I need to look for a peak on the map roughly at that height. Note, the watch altitude may not match what the map says exactly, so this can be off by a few meters. First things first, we have to take out our map tools. By default in ACE, while looking at the map, hold down Control and the Windows key, which brings up the ACE self-interaction menu. Go to the Map Tool option and then select Show Small Map Tool. Scroll all the way out on the map and look for the map tool in the lower left part of the map. Click and drag it to approximately where you think you'll need it. Now, back out of the map and take out your compass with the K key by default. Either press and hold the compass up, or double-click it to keep it up on the screen. Notice at the top of the compass, there's a little cutout with a piece of wire running through it vertically. Let's line that piece up with the rightmost windmill in that northern group, and then once that's done, without moving your mouse at all, open the map. Once back in the map, press and hold Control and the Windows key again to open the ACE self-interaction menu. Go to Map Tools, and you'll see some new options, including Align Map Tool to Compass. Select that option, and the map tool will automatically rotate to the same bearing as your compass. Now, since I used the rightmost windmill in the group to my north, I'm going to put the top corner of my map tool that has all these lines down the side of it on top of that windmill on my map. You don't have to be super precise with getting that corner exactly on the windmill, but the closer you are now, the better off you will be later. Next, press Ctrl and Shift. Click your mouse on the map next to that corner and drag your mouse along the edge of the map tool. This will draw a straight line on the map, and as an added benefit, your mouse will snap to the edge of the mouse tool when you do this, so you'll always draw your line accurately. With that line drawn, let's do the same thing with the other group of windmills. Again, I'm going to use the rightmost one, line up my compass to it, open my map, align my map tool, and draw my line. If you drew your 2 lines long enough, they should intersect at some point. That is your current location. Looking at the map, I can confirm that this point has that road to my east, as well as the power lines. And the hill is marked on the map as being 228 meters above sea level, which is within a couple meters of my altimeter watch. If that intersection didn't match with what I'm seeing, then it means I messed up somewhere and need to try again. Assuming everything matches, congratulations, you now know where you are. But now you got to figure out how to get where you're going. This is where we get to the nav part of land nav. Let's say we manage to get command on the radio, and they say they'll have a little bird meet us at the dump to our northwest at grid location 059 break 202. Without having a GPS to draw yourself a route on the map, there's two methods you can use to find your way there. Let's cover what I call the big brain method first. This is what you'll be taught in most landnav courses and is the more precise method. This makes it ideal for situations where you have to find a very small waypoint, like a piece of paper, on the ground, in the tall grass. Yes, this is actually something my platoon lead made us do for training once, and it sucked. This method is also useful to know for movements over very long distances, or through dense terrain like jungles and forests, where you won't have any landmarks to help guide you. With your current location still marked on the map, place a marker on your destination, here marked with a red X labeled Extract. Take a look at your map tool. In the middle of the compass part, you'll see some small circles with a tiny little red dot in the middle. Place that dot over your current location. Now, press and hold the Alt key, then click and drag the map tool with your mouse. This will rotate the tool around that tiny dot. Rotate so the long red line intersects with our objective. This will give you the bearing to your waypoint, using the smaller black numbers on the inside of the compass. Make a note of that bearing, and then click and drag the map tool so that the long edge with the ruler markings along the edge intersect your start and end points, linking up the 0 mark with your start point. This is how we'll measure the distance to our next waypoint. Each large number on the ruler is equal to 1 kilometer, with markings in between. The tiny marks are 10-meter marks, while the larger lines are 100-meter marks. Using this, I can see that I need to go almost exactly 1.5 kilometers to reach the dump. Mark this alongside your bearing, and you're ready to move out. Now that you have your distance and bearing, you can open up your compass with K again, align yourself to the target bearing, and set off. Knowing your distance also means that you'll have at least an estimate of how far to run before you have to worry that you might have missed your target. If you do get lost, repeat all these steps again. Find a secure spot on high ground, look for landmarks, find your location, re-establish your bearing and distance to target, and set off again. This method is also useful for more complex routes. Say I've been warned that the windmills directly between me and the dump are occupied by enemy forces that I need to avoid, and that the road is being patrolled. I could mark out multiple waypoints that get me across the road quickly, and then loop wide around the enemy location to approach my extract from the north. But what if we don't need a complex route, and we don't care about super precise points on the map? We're trying to find and reach a landfill, not a tiny target. That's where what I call the high-speed method comes into play. So again, let's say the same start and end points, and for the sake of argument, let's say there is no enemy at those windmills. That we know of anyways. With this method, I'm looking for easy-to-find landmarks that I can quickly bounce between and/or follow, like roads or clusters of buildings. In this example, I can see that if I head straight north from my current location, I'll eventually run into the large power lines we spotted earlier. If I follow these power lines all the way until they hit the road turning north here, I know I can then head straight north and hit my objective. Or I could just head straight north from my starting point and follow the road straight in. If you can, it's nice to have both plans figured out. That way, if we do get close to the road and realize it's being patrolled, I can stay farther off, but run parallel with the power lines. And if we run into trouble partway in and have to retreat up into the mountains again, Well, then we can just once again find our location and plot a new route to our objective using either method, big brain or high speed. Personally, in Op, I find myself using the high speed method the most. It's quicker to plot out than finding bearings and distances, and with solid landmarks to guide me, it's very difficult to get lost. But try plotting complex routes with big brain too. It's slower and more tedious, but knowing how to do it will save you when all you can see is trees and you need to navigate to an objective deep in the jungle. And that's it. The first few times you do this, you'll probably take some time finding your initial location. But after some practice, you'll start finding your location quicker and quicker, to a point where you hardly even need to draw lines and markers to locate where you are on the map. For practice, make yourself a kit with no GPS and have a friend jump into the Zeus role and teleport you to a random location on the map, with nothing but an objective marker that you then have to navigate to. Once you get good at that, up the difficulty by making it nighttime, then removing the NVGs and only having a pistol light to guide you. Maybe add in enemy patrols or fire bases you have to avoid. Believe it or not, it's actually a lot of fun to learn and challenge yourself with these exercises once you get the hang of it. Many of the players in my squad actually really enjoy land nav training, having me teleport them all over the map so that they can then race each other to find their location and make their way to some objective, with the winner getting the bragging rights, or in some cases getting to be the Mark 19 gunner on the next stop. Land nav is one of those things in Arma that you'll probably only run into with particularly hardcore groups like ours, and or in very specific scenarios where the modern tools we rely on are suddenly taken away. And maybe you'll never end up needing it, but ask yourself this. When the enemy suddenly sets off that EMP, and the scenario sets off a trigger that deletes your GPS from your inventory, do you want to be in the squad that navigates their way around the map and starts destroying objectives despite the new challenge? Or do you want to be in the squad lost in the middle of nowhere complaining that the game's not fair? This is the first of a series of Arma 3 training videos that I'm hoping to make for the TCG community and the Arma community at large. If there's another topic you'd like me to cover, drop a comment down below and I'll see about adding it to the list. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel so you can see when that next video drops. Until then, this has been Annuncia with TCG's 75th Ranger Regiment.